Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, once again, welcome to Industrial Talk, the #1 industrial-related podcast in the universe that celebrates industry professionals all around the world. You are bold, you are brave, you dare greatly, you innovate, you solve problems. You are making this world an absolutely wonderful place to live. How about that, man? And our guest hasn't muted his cell phone so that everybody got that, but that's okay. I'm a professional. He is the story right there. He is the hero in this story. All right, we're broadcasting, as you can tell from the sound in the background, DistribuTech here in Orlando, Florida, and it is a collection of utility, energy, problem solvers, innovation. It is all happening here in the hot seat. We call him cell phone, but we're going to go by the name of Danny Petrecca. He is the Vice President of Business Development at Locusview. Let's get a cracking. There you go.
Awesome, Scott. Thanks for having us.
Definitely my pleasure. Yeah, no. You having a good conference?
Yeah, it started pretty hot and heavy today. It's huge as usual.
I heard 17.
17,000. Wow.
Yeah, that's...
Last year was probably 12 or 14.
Yeah, they're back pre-COVID levels.
Pre-COVID levels, but especially considering a lot of utility budgets are getting cut a little bit at the end of last year.
So come on,
it's good to see here.
How do you cut budgets in the world that they're trying to demand utilities to achieve certain levels of performance and net zero and all of that stuff, and you can't do that without the almighty dollar.
Well, I think that's the key is when interest rates go up, utilities borrow money to fund their capital projects. So their rate case that said, let me spend $100 million to do this, now that $100 million doesn't go as far as it used to. So, yeah.
That's a good point.
Didn't
think I'm always harping on, not in a bad way, harping on the regulatory component because utilities have a real challenging type of business structure because, quite frankly, they make decisions, but they also have to do it in the purview of regulators. So
yeah,
it's a bit different.
And they can only make as much revenue as they are allowed to make, which is a strange thing. But hey,
rate of return.
Yeah.
All right, now we just wrapped that up. We just solved all those problems. Danny, for the listeners out there, give us a little roadmap on who Danny is and a little background.
Let me think here. So I've been in utilities probably since I got out of grad school. My first job out of college, I was in environmental consulting. And I was actually working on the other side of utilities, helping them clean up their contaminated properties.
Yeah.
Was always interested in GIS and software at the time. So after about 3 years of that, I got into the geospatial side of software for utilities. So GIS, design, engineering, mobile mapping, outage management, ADMS, all the that side of what utilities do to become more efficient. So I went from, helping utilities spend less money to get out of contaminated sites to helping utilities spend money to be more efficient with their processes by digitizing. And that's really what everybody here at DistribuTech's about. So after I did environmental, I worked with a company which is now Schneider Electric for about 18 years. They're a big behemoth, but we were a small portion of that. It was really the ArcFM business, the GIS business that was about geospatial connectivity models for utilities. Did that for a while, and then about 4.5 years ago, I came to Locusview, where we're taking a very focused look at, I think, the last bastion of analog and paper within a utility workflow, which is that digital as-built-in side of what utilities do when they put new poles in the ground and lay new wire or put gas pipes in the ground. So been there about 4.5 years, really focusing on helping grow the business into additional verticals. We're really strong in gas, but we're emerging in electric and doing really well there, hence the presence here at DistribuTech, but also helping with our international business and partnerships like with Esri and our other partners throughout the world.
I know Esri.
Yeah.
I'm quite aware of it.
Everybody does.
we're going to be talking about digital construction management. What does that mean? Or DCM.
DCM, there you go. So digital construction management is, it's not really a thing. To us, it's a space in a utility that begs a lot more attention than it's gotten over the years. It's an acronym that talks about a workflow in the space. So DCM is similar to a general system like GIS or ERP or WMS. These, this alphabet soup that creates the digital enterprise for utilities. So digital construction management to us is about digitizing all the personas and all the data collection that has to go into a capital construction project for utilities, from the planning and engineering side to the construction execution side, all the way to the project closeout side.
Give us an example of that, just
so an example. An electric utility, they get a plan from a developer, they got a new subdivision that's going in, 200 lots need new electric service. Cool. They start a work order in their digital work management system at the utility. They send a work order to their designers to plan that design out in a very fancy graphic work design system. It gives them a construction map, a list of compatible units, and a construction estimate for the cost, all very digital, excellent. It's based off of their GIS system, which is the digital enterprise system. Awesome, good stuff. But then when that thing is scheduled and funded, they send it out to the field in a big, thick packet of paper. So the digital train stops right there. So they send it out to the field, the construction crew builds it, basically 80% of how it was designed. Sometimes you get the red lines back. Sometimes they just press the easy button and go, yeah, we built it as designed. That design, 3, 6, 9 months later, makes it back to the utility. A big, thick packet of paper, maybe got stuffed in somebody's truck and got lost behind Then eventually the digital people on the enterprise have to tear off those pieces of paper and say, all right, here's your part of the packet. Here's the GIS part. Here's the work management part. Here's the financial part. And a year later, they've realized what was actually built in the field and things were done differently. And they have this really bad process, manual paper-driven process for managing construction as-builts. So DCM is about threading that digital divide between what I call those digital bookends, the planning and design bookend, and then the closeout GIS ADMS bookend, with a digital application to give the field the ability to capture all the data they need in the field during construction and close out everything through a streamlined digital process.
How do you deal with a situation where there's a lot of as-builts out there, and I would imagine there's questionable accuracy with those particular as-builts, and they've been that way forever?
Yeah, so first of all, when you that design in the first part of the process, it's built off of their system of record, which has been basically posted with as-builts that are fairly inaccurate. A lot of times,
they're inaccurate.
Oh,
I've been there, done that. I know exactly what they look like.
We've been on field demos with crews, and we're like, hey, we're going to go out and check out this pole run here, and we'll do a mock demo over here. We go out there, they're working off their maps. Where's that pole? This map says there's a pole supposed to be here. Well, wait, there's a switchgear on the other side of the street. Oh no, those guys went underground instead, and the as-built never got updated. Yeah. So that's the design process. Starts from that poor GIS data quality. And that's the problem in the field is the linemen in the field, the construction crews, half of which are contractors, they're incented to build things in budget and to standard. Not to the way you designed it, and not to make it, a pretty map or help the financial bean counters collect the money. So they've always rejected technology in the field because it was, I don't want to use a computer and this makes too much time. But I think there's been a convergence, a lot of technological improvements over the past 10 years that have made it very easy for crews in the field to do very high fidelity data capture, very accurate data capture during construction. It adds a couple minutes per job, and then you have that digital workflow all the way down in the back end to feed things like ADMS that need really good data to work.
Where do you even begin? I get that. I mean, that's some heavy lifting sometimes.
It is, and I'll tell you where we began, because for 20 years I've spent a lot of time trying to shove technology into people in the field and just watch your tablet or your Toughbook become a very high-priced paperweight for the ANSI D sheet that they're putting on the hood of the truck. They reject it. So we started with, if we can't solve the problem of getting construction crews to use this, the adoption, the usability, everything else is moot. Like, we had to have people adopt it in the field. And we really partnered with utilities and the industry to say, we want to build a solution for this problem of, initially started with gas tracking and traceability. They needed a way to capture high accuracy GPS and spatial work data for pipes they're burying, because PHMSA and the mega rule requires it. So to a certain extent. And we built and threw away probably 4 different versions of the mobile application before we got adoption. We said, okay, that's working, because it matches the way they work in the field. It matches a workflow of construction, rather than being a mapping app that's trying to match your workflow, or having the workers change their workflow to match the software. Adoption was number one. And that, if you can't solve that, forget it. It's just, it's technology is going to be.
How did you solve it? I mean, I'll just give you an example. Every time when I went out on the crew, we had our maps.
Yep.
And on the hood. Mm-hmm. And we would look at what's physically out there. Yep. We'd look at the map. If there's any disconnect between the map and what's physically out there, I'd scribble on it. Yep. And then hopefully it'd get back to the planners or whoever designed the maps to try to update the maps, which never happened. Right. But so then there's this, at least some representation of what exists out there in the physical world on a map. Mm-hmm. But everybody felt comfortable with, like, all right, let's just take a look at this map on the hood, and mm-hmm. it's spread out. How did you solve that?
Well, and it is impossible to solve the comfort of huge cartographic white space.
Yes.
While you're planning your work, and honestly, there's still a lot of crews that do that. A lot of our customers do that. But what we've enabled them with is a mobile application that only requires them to capture the few pieces of data when it's the time to capture that data in the as-built. So first of all, the forms are responsive. So if you're putting in a three-phase transformer, it's not going to ask you the phase of the transformer. If it knows that the work order is a 12.4 kV line, it's not going to ask you for the voltage. If you barcode scan that transformer during as-builting, it's going to fill out the serial number and the rating and the impedance and all that nameplate information. Instead of having you fill out that form that's been at Utility X since 1950, where you got to fill out 4 sheets of data about a transformer. So the ease of filling out the data had to be achieved. Then it was about the location, the spatial location. And the GNSS technology today, or GPS technology today, is so easy that now it's low-cost GNSS receivers can be attached to our Locusview application, and you can get survey-grade accuracy as long as you can tell the difference between green and red. If it's green, you've got good accuracy. If it's red, you got to wait for satellites. That's it. So you get the spatial very easy. Instead of measuring things with wheels and tape measures and stuff from corners of buildings and transformer corner and like poles and stuff like that, you got your location. In the form, you're only going to fill out those 3 pieces of information that you need to. Everything else is carried over from design or read from a barcode. We had to make it really easy with that technological leap.
I could just imagine some of the conversations you had about, no, you don't need, all you need is this, and all you need to be is over here, and all you need to do is push this button, mm-hmm. and lo and behold, your life is easier and better. And I would imagine there's a segment of that society, that group, that just said, nah, not me, nah. Yeah. And then they'd have to retire until you can really sort of move that ball forward.
Well, there's 2 aspects to that. One is, thankfully, as my phone so rudely was ringing before, everybody these days has one or multiple mobile devices in their pocket every day. Yeah. So the excuse of, I don't know how to use a computer, that's not cutting it.
Gone out the door.
Everybody's got to make a restaurant reservation or get to the Costco, and they need a map, and they use their phone. So we've made it that easy. And the other aspect is, just making the adoption so easy for them and bringing the people in to say, okay, show us how you do this in the field. We'll show you how this matches your workflow. And they still make us prove it in the field. So a lot of times we're doing field POCs, a proof of concept. It's not a full implementation, but it's like, I like what you're saying, I understand it, I believe you, but show me how easy it is to work. So we'll go out with a couple construction crews, go, okay, show us how you do this as-built today. Boom, 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 they do it, they fill out their forms. Here's how you do it with us. We give them the application, there's a simple ranging rod, they have the GPS, and they go, oh, that was easy. Wait, can we go over here and do this one too? And they start to like it. Yeah. They start to like it. We have some customers who they've said, all right, we're only going to do this for, let's take a gas example. We're only going to use Locusview for our gas mains because there are too many services and we don't want to map our services anyway. And they'll go out there, they'll map the mains, and the crews will be like, hey, foreman, boss, while I'm out here, this is going real fast. Why don't we just map these services too? It only takes like a minute. So they're starting to improve their maps by mapping things. So you don't get stuck
in a proof of concept purgatory.
Well, that's always the danger. There's always the danger of the never-ending pilot or 9 pilots that eventually turns into something real. But yeah, I think once we love to go to the field because it's where we shine.
Yeah.
It's where we can prove it out and people go, okay, integrations and other things, that's easy to do once you've solved the problem, the hard problem of the field adoption.
Where do you see it going? Like what's sort of that future hat look like?
Well, we're growing pretty well. Last year was we saw some headwinds of the economy, but we're seeing at this conference things picking up. What I see is that there's a lot of fuel being put on the fire of construction and electric utilities. First of all, construction and electric utilities has always been a constant. There's always been a lot of it. Then you pour on top of that all the federal stimulus, which is about infrastructure, more infrastructure, undergrounding, hardening, EV charging, smart grid, all that stuff requires more construction, which requires more capital, requires more resources. And that's where you're starting to hit the limits is utilities have more money and more need to do more construction than ever before. And their operational systems like ADMS, these smart brains and DERMS, distributed energy resource management systems, advanced distribution management systems, these things need data the second it's operational. So there are pressures from both ends, but what you have is a lack of resources. There's a scarcity of contractors to lay cable, to put up poles, to string wire, to fuse pipe. And then, so there's a human resource restriction, so they need to do more with less, the utilities. Then there's transformers. There's I'm hearing 2 to 3 year wait list for transformers. Yep. So they need to be much more efficient with what they have today, and the way to do that is to digitize a very pressured, paper-laden process. And so I see that pressure alleviating over time. I think the supply chain is going to have to catch up with the transformer backlog. But I see adoption on the electric space for digital as-built kicking up. We just had a big tier 1 customer go live in December. They operate through 8 states. They have a consolidated electric as-built now with Locusview, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot of need for really good data going into these OT systems that utilities need help getting rid of their paper.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So somebody's listening out there, and they need to get a hold of you. What's the best way?
Well, you can go to www.locusview.com. You can check out things there. There's forms you can fill out, and just hit me up on LinkedIn as well.
So you're active on LinkedIn?
I am active on LinkedIn, yep.
Okay, so not hollow. We'll have your stat card out there. You were absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
All right, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. We're going to have all the contact information for our friend Danny out on Industrial Talk, so reach out to him, make it, because we're all about education, collaboration, and of course innovation out on Industrial Talk. Be a part of the ever-expanding community, so be a part of that. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
Danny's his name. We're going to have his stat card out on Industrial Talk, so reach out to him. I enjoyed that conversation. Locusview, great company. I enjoy any conversation that is around power gen, utilities, and the challenges that they have to sort of address today. If we're going to continue to sort of demand more from our grid, we're going to have to do a lot more. And Locusview leading the way. There's always inefficiencies, and they're addressing the inefficiency. I can relate to that. When I was a transmission lineman, I can relate to that. Big old stack of paper. This is how you're supposed to build it, put the pole here, that type of stuff. And you get somewhat close, but a lot of times. Anyway, reach out to Danny. Big time. All right, building the platform, as I always say. You have a podcast, put it on Industrial Talk. You have a desire to amplify your voice? Come on, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. All right, be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Hang out with Danny, change the world. We're going to have another great conversation shortly, so stay tuned.